Good morning. Globally, attention is split between a fragile Middle East truce process, renewed pressure on energy markets, and a fast-moving technological shift led by artificial intelligence. On global conflict, the US and Iran have begun their highest-level talks in 5 decades, but negotiators are describing a stalemate over the Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point for global oil shipments. Iran is linking any durable end to hostilities to the unblocking of its assets and to wider ceasefire conditions, including in Lebanon, with negotiating teams arriving in Islamabad. Reporting also points to significant damage to regional oil and gas supply, including impacts on Saudi and Qatari production capacity, keeping the global energy outlook tense, even as diplomacy proceeds. On the ground, Al Jazeera reports continued Israeli airstrikes in Gaza with fatalities overnight, and vigils abroad for victims of strikes in Lebanon. Separately, the BBC reports mass sentencing in Nigeria, with nearly 400 people sentenced for links to militant Islamists. In the global economy, the immediate risk remains energy-driven inflation and supply disruption if shipping through Hormuz is constrained. In Europe, the BBC reports fuel tankers have regained access to an Irish oil refinery after demonstrations linked to high prices, underscoring how quickly geopolitical shocks are feeding into domestic cost of living pressures. On artificial intelligence and the broader technological revolution, the Financial Times argues AI, combined with demographic change, could reshape work and leisure by creating more free time than societies are prepared to use well. In parallel, the information environment around conflict is evolving. The Financial Times notes Iran's use of memes and online propaganda during the war, while The Guardian reports on Polymarket, where gamblers are betting millions on war outcomes, raising concerns about prediction markets influencing narratives and ruling on the truth in real time. In science and technology, the Artemis Roman 2 mission has returned safely, with multiple outlets reporting the Orion capsule splashdown after a historic crewed flight around the moon. The mission is being framed not just as a technical milestone, but as a political and strategic signal in a conflict-ridden period. Closer to home, SBS reports Australian backyard astronomers have been recognized for a world-first planetary discovery, with their observations helping guide major telescopes. Turning to Australia, the most material domestic development in today's coverage is cost of living pressure intersecting with health. SBS reports a new survey finding some Australians are being forced to choose between food and medicine, particularly where prescribed medicines are not covered by the PBS. That is a direct signal of household stress and a potential pressure point for government policy, the Australian public service and health system settings, as affordability and access questions intensify. On Australian economy, government policy and politics, and the Australian share market, there are no specific market moves or major policy announcements in the provided reports this morning. The key economic linkage to watch remains global. Any sustained disruption to Middle East energy supply or shipping would flow quickly into Australian fuel costs and broader inflation expectations. Finally, locally and culturally, ABC reports disabled artists from a Western Sydney collective are center stage in a new exhibition at Bathurst Regional Art Gallery, highlighting increased visibility for inclusive arts practice in the region.